Greetings. This is a chart that I also showed about a year ago when energy prices were spiking somewhat, oil and natural gas, because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, since inflation hysteria is taking over the media and people are completely unmoored from any semblance of actual data analysis and forming opinions based on data, this graph is very revealing as it covers a very crucial portion of people's expenditures, at least in the United States, but a similar trend will be evident in all advanced economies. And the way to read this chart is energy goods and services as a percentage of personal consumption expenditures. PCE means personal consumption expenditures. In 1959, it was well over 7%. It started to decline somewhat during the 1960s. Then oil became expensive during the 1970s. We had gasoline lines, in fact, and a lot of people had to carpool to work. Carpooling was, in fact, a common thing. Very few people carpool nowadays. So this expense percentage rose from a low of almost 6% to well over 9%. And I remember this when I was a kid. My parents would keep the temperature very low in our home and we had to wear coats indoors and everyone had to do that. Then the price of oil and natural gas fell, and yet this continued to fall throughout the 90s, reaching all-time lows repeatedly. Oil once again became expensive in the 2000s. We remember that. Oil rose to $100 a barrel and was there for 6 or 7 years. Then because of hydraulic fracturing increasing the world's oil supply, this fell further. And remember, this is not only about oil, this is all energy goods and services. So natural gas, solar energy, batteries, things like that. So it is very comprehensive. And for all the talk of inflation, this is one of the crucial elements of a person's expenditure because this is energy. It's one of the first principles of economics and of the universe. Energy drives everything, and as energy gets cheaper, economic growth can occur. Energy is essential for life as well. Even when you eat food, the food comprises kilocalories of energy that then enable you to move around and conduct physical activity. If you don't eat enough food, then your kilocalorie reserve goes down. You'll have to draw from what is in the body, and when you deplete that, then your energy becomes really low. So this trend is going down, down, and down consistently. Despite occasional spikes, which I described, it is going down. This is a hyperbola. It's not a straight line down, of course, meaning that each halving is of similar magnitude. 8% going to 4% is the same amount of effort as 4% going to 2%, 2% going to 1%. This can never become 0%, obviously. But this downward trend completely obliterates the entire narrative of inflation and spiking energy bills and things like that. There are anecdotal examples of where energy mismanagement has caused bills to spike, notably in California, but at the nationwide level, the trend is merely downwards. And in 2020, we were at a record low as a percentage. The big spike that scared everyone about their utility bill merely went from 3.3% up to about 5%, and it has fallen again. So this spike is what everyone is hysterical about. It rose to a level that was still the record low in 1995. Some perspective is in order. That's why this channel is very data-driven, and I get a lot of hate from people who don't want to be data-driven and just want to be hysterical, non-data-driven people. They can never present any counter data to refute my conclusions, but this is a reason to be optimistic. The cost of energy is going down. And remember, the amount of energy consumed is not constant. It is rising. Over the course of this entire period, 1959 to present, this exceeds the lifespan of almost everyone watching this channel. Very few of the viewers of this channel were born before 1959. The number and variety of devices in the home that consume energy has risen a lot. You have all types of PCs now, smartphones, flat screen LED TVs, unlike the TVs that existed 40 or 50 years ago, those big cube TVs. Game consoles, all sorts of other things have proliferated that did not exist before. So the variety of devices consuming energy has risen, and yet the percentage of one's personal consumption expenditures that go into energy has gone down. Since people like to get hysterical about inflation, we will soon be at a time where this dips all the way down to 2%, and then the rise from 2% to 3% will have the same amount of media hysterics and the world is ending type of narratives occurring, even though the rise will be to 3%, which is still lower than it has ever been as of 2023. If that sounds funny, well, we already had that. This rise made everyone hysterical about hyperinflation, and it's already come down. It has not come down all the way because oil is still about $80 a barrel when it should be $50 a barrel. The fact that the United States has obstructed hydraulic fracturing, the Biden administration has obstructed that, is why oil is more expensive than it otherwise would be, or we would still be back here. However, this difference is not huge for anyone old enough to even remember the 1990s, let alone the 1970s, the highest point. So energy goods and services as a percentage of personal consumption expenditure is a very, very robust metric of long-term economic growth. People are spending half as much on their energy bills as they did in the 1970s. And furthermore, consider all the new technologies emerging that are pushing this downward even more. Other videos on this channel have discussed how wind energy and solar energy are now more than 10% of all electricity generated worldwide. Less than 10% in the US, but more than 10% worldwide. Electric vehicles are also proliferating and have become a mass market technology. But the even higher order disruption, working from home for some percentage of the workforce. 20, 30, 35% of the workforce can work from home most days of the week, and that enables a tremendous amount of energy savings, not just in gasoline, but even in the electricity bills of these offices, which are themselves shuttering. There's a lot of energy devoted to the utility of a worker going to and from the office. Energy expenses by the workers themselves, and energy expenses by the employer just to maintain an office. All of that was very unproductive. Offices always have their lights on during the daytime. People usually don't do that in their homes. So there's another savings there. Greater utility of sunlight when possible. So just so many technological disruptions are encased within this trend, and there's great beauty in a chart like this. So tune out all the inflation, nihilism, and hysteria, because remember, the media's job is to make you angry and frightened, and a lot of people are trying to sell you a product because they say, hey, the price is about to rise because of inflation. So don't fall for all of those scams, and remember a chart like this. We live in an era of abundant and inexpensive energy, and it keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. Every time they've talked about peak oil or hyperinflation, none of that has ever come to pass. Always keep that in mind, and if you like this type of content, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.